Whoa.
He's the Geator. The Geator with the heater. He's the Geator. The Geator with the heater. He's the boss with the hot sauce.
Oh, okay, hold on.
He's the Geator.
Hey, you know, that's it.
The Geator with the heater.
Well, hello out there, yon teenager. Gather round. 'Tis I, the big boss with the hot sauce. How are you? It is a Sunday, and I hope wherever you are, you're having fun, and I hope you're being safe. I hope you wear your mask. I'm not wearing my mask here because this is my studio, and this is the hippest studio in America because it's a studio that I built. But anyway, you and I are going to have a chat. My man over here and my man over there, I call them Starsky and Hutch. They make me either look good or they make me look bad. It depends upon what you see and what you think. So, we got a couple of questions, and the questions will be coming up over here, Dave. And Eddie, the questions will be coming up over there.
I have some questions that we didn't get to. The last
Now,
meeting.
Eddie has some questions. You're going to have to speak louder, right? Because at my age,
All right.
go ahead.
So since it's Sunday,
Right.
you know, for us Italians, we usually celebrate dinners on Sunday.
Oh, on Sunday. He's talking about Sunday. If you're an Italian, you know what happens? L'abundanza. That means you're going to have a lot of food today. You start at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, and the kids go to the movie at 12:30, and when the kids come back, they're still eating macaroni, spaghetti, lasagna, ensalade. Sunday's a big day for Italians. It starts at 12 o'clock, and it ends when everybody gets drunk on wine. Not the kids. I'm talking about the adults out there.
So Janice Greco wants to know, do you actually cook anymore?
Yeah. Well, I don't cook any longer because I really don't have that much time to cook. But yes, I used to cook. Who sent that in?
Janice Greco.
Janice. Well, I figure it's an Italian girl like you, Janice. Yes, I used to cook. As a matter of fact, I got to tell you, it's a true story. I got Sammy Davis hooked on cooking. Because when Sammy would come to my home and my mom would cook, what would happen is Sammy would say to my mom, "How did you make the sausage and the peppers?" And I said, "Sam, that's the easiest dish in the world to make. You get the oil, you get the garlic, okay? Fry the oil and the garlic, brown the sausage, okay? Chop your peppers up, okay? Steam them a little bit, then put it a little bit and get some white wine, and you'll have some scallopini, wet with sausage." So I cooked. So Sammy used to say to me, "Well, if you can cook, I can cook. Whatever you can do, I can do better." So he started to cook, and when he was at the Latin Casino, he used to bring pots and pans because I used to call him my man pots and pans, my man Sam. So that's how it began. I mean, I cooked, he cooked. I don't cook anymore, though. Yes.
So sticking with that theme, Mark Curran
Mark Correa.
wants to know, what do you eat to stay so thin and young looking, and tell him about the veggie juices.
What do I eat to stay so thin? Birdseed. You got Ben Vaughn on?
Yeah.
I don't know
What
how
do
to
I
say it.
eat to
Okay, let me
stay so
answer the
thin?
question. No, I eat very light. I actually in the morning get up. I think I told you before. I exercise. I do my sit-ups and all that. I get on the bicycle. I ride around town. I look for a cup of coffee. A lot of times I drink green tea, which is very important. And what I then do is I look for a little place that's got good bagels. Scoop the bread out from the bagel. Get a little bit of lox. It's got to be Nova. It can't be salty. A little tomato and an onion, and I'm on my way for the whole day. At nighttime, I go out with the guys, all my buddies, Greg Gentili, Victor the barber, Dr. Razor, Chad, who owns Licio's Bread and Rolls, and also my man, you know, Primo Hoagies. I go out with Nick. We all go together. And if I missed any of the guys, oh yeah, Joe Marone, a wonderful lawyer. He's watching. We go out and we eat light. We all bring a bottle of wine and we eat light. And that's what I do, my day. My day's always working. Is that good?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Okay. Now,
Just hold on before we get to the caller.
all right.
Just remind people that if they want to ask any questions, or if there's anything they want to know or
If
chat
they
about,
any questions,
yeah, just leave a comment below and we'll get to the
okay,
questions.
so in other words, I can see what they're doing, right?
Yeah, you can see who's on right now.
Right.
Let's give a little shout out right here.
A little let me put my glasses on then. Because, you know, at this age, you're a little blind. So hold on for a second over here. By the way, I just got done talking with my buddy Frankie Valli, and he's in the car. We were going to get him on the phone, but he's in the car, and he don't know how to do it, and neither do I know how to do it, so we'll get him one day. Okay, my man, Nate Leonard, okay? Joe Friday. Who's Joe Friday?
You know, he's cousins with Sam Saturday.
Oh, same guy that's with me on Saturday. Yeah. Okay. We got Ben Vaughn on the phone.
Why don't you tell everybody who Ben is?
Who?
Tell everyone who Ben is.
Oh, Ben Vaughn.
Oh, same guy that's with me on Saturday.
It's a Saturday
Yeah.
show. It's called the Geator's Rock and Roll Rhythm and Blues and Express. Ben Vaughn is a great musician from Philadelphia who does a show from 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock and also created the music for Third Rock Under the Sun and also the 70s shows. So he's a terrific guy. He's living in the desert where I should be living. So is Ben on the phone? Is that what we're doing? Okay. But by the way, you know, someone asked me about the early days in TV. Someone mentioned Aquarama, a girl by the name of Stella from South Philadelphia. Aquarama was run by a fellow by the name of Ed Hurst. Ed Hurst used to have a show called the Steel Pier Show, and it was in Atlantic City. And the first TV show that I actually did co-hosting was Summertime at the Pier with Ed Hurst, and then we did Aquarama. And then in 1965, when Dick Clark was about to leave, 64 it was, to go to the West Coast, there was a party at the Venus Lounge in South Philadelphia, a going-away party, and Dick Clark said to Lou Klein at that time, who was the program director, you know, now that I'm leaving Philadelphia and there's no longer a local type show, you should do something with the Geator. So I went out and I made a pilot specifically for Channel 6. And I used all of the people from WCAU who were moonlighting. Debbie Miller, great producer, Matt Robinson, Bob Orlander, and I used the camera guys. And we did this pilot, and we did it right before Christmas of '65. And didn't hear anything, so I figured it's dead about me doing a show on Channel 6. Next thing I know, Nat Sigel, who we called Dayton, you might remember, who answered the phones and became my manager, also was with Bob Horn, by the way, at the beginning of Bob Horn's career, got a call from Bruce Bryant from WCAU, said, listen, we see this pilot that some of our people put together. We were like, Jerry Blavat, come in, we understand you're his manager, come in, we want to talk about it. So I brought in Harold Lipsius, who was my attorney at that time, and we sat with Bruce Bryant and his program director, and they said, listen, we don't like the pilot, but we like the way you move on television and the way you look. If you were to do your own show, what would you do? I said, well, first of all, I look like a kid. I'm not going to go behind a podium with a suit and tie. I love Dick Clark, but that's what they did, suit and ties. I'm going to be wearing it open like a kid. V-neck sweater, no podium. Well, no, not behind a podium, but give me a riser. I'm going to dance on the riser with all the kids around me. They said, that's interesting. Well, how are you going to mic it? I said, with a wireless microphone like I'm doing right now. Okay. What about the guest stars? Okay, I'll have guest stars, but they're not going to lip sync. What do you mean? How's that going to happen? Well, when I call the record companies and say I want the Four Tops, I want them to send me the track, and we'll have them sing live over the track. And when Little Richard was in town or Fats Domino was in town, I would go see them at the Cadillac Show Bar, and I would book them on the show, and I would say, Richard and Fats, what I like you to do, bring the musicians on. So we did that show live. They said, very interesting. What are you going to call the show? I said, well, kids are dancing to the sound, the disc. I'm going to call it the Discophonic TV Scene. Wow, unique. Let's give it a shot. They gave me 13 weeks for a half an hour. After the first 2 weeks, guys, and you know because you were there, I called you Yon Teenager, greetings and salutations, gather round to the hawk and the musical sound I'm putting down. After 2 weeks, I get a call from Lip Brothers. They want to buy the half hour. Now, Bruce Bryan at Channel 10 says, well, we don't have time to sell what we want. Let's do an hour. We do an hour. The following week, when we went to an hour, Mel Korn from Pepsi-Cola calls me up and says to me, I want to see you. You're the young teenage leader, the Geator with the heater. That's what I used to say, the rebel jock that rocks the big tick-tock. So I went to see him, and he gives me this drink called Mountain Dew. Mountain Dew was owned by Pepsi-Cola, the parent company, but none of the bottlers would touch it because it was too sweet. And it was not in bottles. It was in cans. So he says, taste this, and you tell me how you would sell it. So I tasted it. I said, whoa, wow. That's it. That's it. Yahoo! When you taste this, you got to yell. It's so sweet. Well, how would you do it with the kids? I said, I would have the kids in the stands, Yahoo, Mountain Dew, get the corn cob, the hat, the pipe, and we'd all sit there with a thing, a cockamamie thing on the head, and I say, kids, young teenagers, I want you to taste this. All the Geator Gold guys and gals are here. We're going to taste this brand new drink. And when you drink it, this is what you're going to say. One sip, Yahoo! It's good for you. Clicked. Because of that, Joan Crawford, who was married to the head of Pepsi-Cola, called the agency and said, I like this kid. I would like to meet him and talk to him how he is approaching all these young kids in the country, because the show was syndicated by Warner Brothers at that time. So I met Joan Crawford in Atlantic City at the old Schaffenhofen Hotel, which is now Resorts, okay? And when you meet a star like that, the directors are there, the makeup guys are there, the lighting guys are there, and the director says to me, now you sit over here, and when Miss Crawford comes in, you don't speak until she says, hello, young man, and then you say, well, hello, Miss Crawford, big fan of yours, blah, blah, blah. So I'm waiting. Now, my mother, and if you read the book, looked exactly to me like Joan Crawford. So I love Joan Crawford. I knew the movies that she made, Mildred Pierce. She won the Academy Award for that. I know she was married to Frank Chateau. I know she was a Ziegfeld girl. I know she had a couple of affairs with some of the stars. I'm not going to mention who they are, but she told me I was right. So she comes in, and I say, wow. She said, is there something wrong, young man? I said, no, man. I said, I got to tell you, Miss Crawford, I see you, and I see my mother. She said, you see your mother. I said, no, my mother looks exactly like you. And I said, I know everything about you. Well, tell me what you know about me. I said, you started out as a dancer. She said, you're too young to remember that. I said, no. I said, I know everything about you. You started out as a Ziegfeld dancer. She says, yes. And she says, what was the first contract I got? Said, you worked for MGM, Louis B. Mayer. She said, well, who am I under contract to right now? I said, I think you're under contract to Pepsi-Cola because you married a guy who's the husband, and that's why you wanted to see me. Well, she broke up. And she said, what movies did I do with Warner Brothers? I said, you won an Academy Award for Mildred Pierce. From that moment on, ladies and gentlemen, Joan Crawford and I became dear friends. And she would come to my TV show when I did it on WFIL. We did a 5-day-a-week show called Jerry's Place. And she would have this big, wonderful Hungarian woman who took care of her, okay? And she would be in the dressing room, and she would have Pepsi-Cola, and she'd little dab of vodka in the Pepsi-Cola. And if you remember Jerry's Place, I would dance up the ramp on one leg, bop, 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 bop. And it was a half-an-hour show. Kids would be in the audience, and I'd say, ladies and gentlemen, now we have a true star, the woman, blah, 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 Joan Crawford. And it would take her at least 3 minutes to get up to the little podium, and I would ad lib because the Pepsi and a little bit of the vodka. So the city of Philadelphia, that day on the TV show, Paul Diortona, my dear friend, was president of the city council. And at that time, Jim Tate was the mayor of Philadelphia. So Paul Diortona, they presented her with a proclamation. And of course, everyone loved Joan Crawford. So that night, Joan Crawford, myself, Paul Diortona, we all had dinner in her suite. And that's the end of that. For more information, you're going to have to read the book about Joan Crawford. All right, let's see. I got some people coming in.
Yeah, there's some people,
Okay.
some comments.
Okay, Joseph. Great to see you still performing. Let me explain to your show and the impact you had on music. Okay. Thank you, Joe Aphonic Joe. Good seeing you the other night. Okay. Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys.
Is it?
Well, I'll tell you about Brian Wilson. Brian Wilson, my old friend Andy Paley, and I hope you're watching, Andy. Andy is a great producer. He produced for Darlene Love. He had his own group, okay, the Paley Brothers, and was one of the Beach Boys. And Brian Wilson wanted to meet the Geator. And also, Andy worked with SpongeBob, Tom Kenny. And so Andy calls me. He says, "You're going to be out on the West Coast?" I said, "I'm coming out to see Frankie Valli." He said, "Well, Brian wants to have dinner with you, and Tom Kenny, SpongeBob, wants to have dinner." So Brian Wilson, myself, Frankie Valli, Andy Paley, we had dinner. And Brian says, "I want to pick up the check. I want to pick up the check." Well, when the check came, he went to the men's room. So I picked up the check. When he came back, he said, "Where's the check?" I said, "Don't worry about it, Brian." But a lovely, lovely guy. As a matter of fact, on my radio show, he does some promos. Brian Wilson. There are so many wonderful thoughts about people that have been a part of my life in show business. Whether it's Dionne Warwick, whether it's Frankie, whether it's Frankie Avalon or Bobby Rydell, and the actors. I mean, I met Charlton Heston, who, a great story about Charlton Heston. When I was doing the 5-day-a-week TV show, and they had the big anniversary of Ben-Hur, they invited me down to Florida to interview Charlton Heston. Now, back then, what you guys didn't know, and I guess even today, if there's a new movie out, they get a top personality from every city to do an interview with the star so they can promote the movie. So I went down, and there were all these other TV personalities from all over the country that were doing what I was supposed to do, to interview 3 minutes about Ben-Hur, the excitement of recreating it. Stephen Boyd was there. So, as usual, because I love movies, and I'm sure I was always a fan of the Indians, and I still am a great fan of the Native American Indians. So, again, I'm there. You got to wait for Charlton Heston to come out, and the director says, "You have 3 minutes. These are the questions. You want to talk about Ben-Hur. How exciting was it for you to make that movie? When you did the chariot race, did you have a stuntman?" All the questions. These are everybody has the same questions, except your different personalities in a different city. So Heston comes out, and he was playing tennis. He was a great tennis player. So he comes out, and he sits down, and the director says, "This is Jerry Blavat from Philadelphia. Oh, nice to meet you, Jerry Blavat." I said, "Mr. Heston, I got to tell you something. One of the greatest pictures I saw you in was when you played an Indian." He said, "What?" I said, "Yeah, you did a movie called The Savage." He said, "Do you know that was my first movie?" I said, "I know. You were a white kid that was saved. The Crows came in. They killed your family in the wagon train. The Sioux came in and adopted you as a Sioux." He said, "You really know the movie?" I said, "Yes, you were raised by the Sioux, la-di-da." He said, "I got to tell you about that movie." Now the directors, and you got all these other radio, TV personalities waiting to do 3 minutes with Charlton Heston talking about Ben-Hur. I'm talking about the Savage, the Sioux. He's playing a Sioux. He says, let me tell you about that movie. I never rode a horse. There was a scene in it where they're chasing buffalo. He said, I fell off that, I'm not going to say the word, he said, that damn horse. 7 times. They had to get a stunt man. He said, because you had to ride bareback. And I said to him, because the director's now really getting mad at me, I said, but you did great in that chariot race when you did run in with Stephen Boyd. He said, but it wasn't as exciting as when I fell off the horse. Now this is 8 minutes already. He says to the director, no more interviews. He says to me, what are you doing tonight? I said, oh, I'm in town. I'm at the Fontainebleau. I want you to have dinner with me. And do you know how to tennis? Do you play tennis? I said, yeah, I think so. I don't play tennis in South Philadelphia. You play half ball. You play football. You look for the girls. You go down to the lakes. You make out. He said, well, we'll have dinner tonight, and can you be up tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock? I said, yeah. I didn't let him know I never played tennis. I played badminton. Okay. 7 o'clock in the morning, I don't have the, I wasn't wearing shorts, and I was wearing whatever I was wearing. He comes running onto the tennis court, and he's ready to go, and they give me this. He said, obviously you can't play tennis. He said, okay, this afternoon we're going to have a party here for the cast. And so I spent like 2 days with Charlton Heston. As a matter of fact, WFIL may have had a clip of me playing badminton with Charlton Heston. Any questions here? Hold on. Okay. Going back to the 60s, Pat Klotz. I remember you, Patty. You're one of the kids that used to go to the dances, as a matter of fact. How about that? And here's someone, Jerry, I bought your book and contacted you on Facebook. I thought you might sign it, and you said yes. The chapter on the loyalty
The chapter on loyalty in the book was fascinating.
is listening. It's the chapter on loyalty. Listen, he's talking about loyalty, and I think more important today, when you have a sense of who you are, and you know the difference between right and wrong, and people who are good to you, especially in show business, that nurture you along with your career, you got to be loyal to them. Loyalty, honor, respect, and dignity have been very, very important in my life. I don't care what your business is. I don't care what you do. I lived in a neighborhood with people, the baker, the shoe shine kid, the guy that was the priest, the guy that took numbers. My father was a number writer. That was a way of life. As long as they were cool and good in the neighborhood and nice, I would respect. Loyalty, important. I don't forget who took me to where I am today. Even today, I acknowledge Jocko Henderson, who was my mentor. I acknowledge the radio guys that helped me along, and they're always the black guys on WHAT and WDAS. Guys like Lloyd Fatman, Jimmy Bishop, Lord Fauntleroy, and I never forget Mitch Thomas. Mitch Thomas, I was a promotion man. This is something you guys never knew. We got something here? Okay. I'll make it real quick because Ben Vaughn's on the line. Mitch Thomas did a show in Wilmington, which was the first black TV show on Channel 12, WHYY, which was out of Wilmington. I'm going back 1956, 57, 58. So he also did a radio show on WDAS. Now, I was a promotion man. And as a promotion man, I would visit all the radio stations and give them the records to listen and see if they would play it. So I would go and I would get frozen popsicles. But I'm talking about chocolate frozen banana popsicles. I don't even know they make them anymore. It was a place in South Philadelphia. So for me to get the record played, when I would go to DAS with Mitch Thomas, I would bring him the frozen banana chocolate-covered popsicle. He loved it. He played all my records. And I used to watch him do the spin, and that's how I learned. So from all those guys, I thank all those guys that have been a part of my life. Now, Ben Vaughn is on the line, right? Ben, where are you? Are you there, Ben? Probably fell asleep. Let me see if I got another question.
We have
Sure.
some questions.
Yeah, you got a question?
Yes. We talked about the TV show.
The TV show?
I
Yeah.
am in parts
Keely
unknown
sent some questions.
USA.
Riviera in Collingswood, New Jersey on Friday.
Riviera, what do we got, Ben again?
Ha!
Somebody kept getting confused. It's not easy.
We got
And
Ben.
you,
Let's go to Ben.
we go to Ben, and then I'll answer the question about the Riviera and Mepri and all those things. Ben, are you there? Somebody translate what he's saying, because I can't hear. Uh-huh. Anyway, while we're trying to get
Hello,
translation,
hello.
the Riviera. You want to turn the speaker up?
I can't hear you.
Modern technology. I hate all this, ladies and gentlemen. Wait till I get Frankie Valli on the phone with me. Ben, can you hear me? Forget it. The Riviera and Mepri. When I was doing the dances, you remember Shebu, Wagner's. First dance we really did, I think I told you that before, was the Dixon House in South Philly. From the Dixon House, I then did the Alhambra in South Philadelphia. From the Alhambra, I then went up and did a dance in New Jersey called the Ice House. Then we really peaked from the Ice House, Shebu, which originally we did was a Drexelbrook Country Club. Then later on, I did Mepri, which was the other first dance in 1962. And later on, we did a dance called the Riviera Ballroom. The guy was a good guy. His name was Bud. And his daughters, they used to watch the TV show. And it was very successful on Friday night. You know, interesting thing about the dances. When you kids danced with me during the wintertime, during the summertime, we would go down to the shore. We would dance in Wildwood at the Starlight Ballroom. We would also dance in Ocean City, the Ocean City Convention Hall. And we would dance at the Lyric, the Jefferson Hotel. And at the Jefferson Hotel, I told you the story with a young kid by the name of Phil Giuliano, who now is, as I said last week, with all of the casino guys. He's like one of the head guys with Tony Rodeo, Mark Giuliano, Larry Mullen, Gary DeBart. He was a kid, and he first hipped me up that Stevie Wonder was blind because I didn't see Stevie Wonder. I was on stage, and he was pulling my legs. I said, here's Stevie Wonder. Everybody say, yeah, yeah, yeah. And this Phil's pulling my, I say, yo, I'm trying to introduce this guy. He said, he can't see. I didn't know that. So, Phil, thank you very much. Stevie and I, by the way, became great friends after that. And here's a story about Stevie. I had him on the TV show. So before we would go on the air, would rehearse and we would go live. So I would say to Stevie, Stevie, take my arm for the rehearsal, okay? He would do there and I introduce them. I said, that's what we're going to do when we do the actual show, because when we did the show, we did it live. It was taped live and you saw it all around the country. So somebody comes and asks him for an autograph. So I said, Steve, this young person would like an autograph. So I take him to get the autograph, all right? And he starts to talk to this person, and we're getting late because now we're going to have to hit in about 20 minutes. I have to take him back. He wouldn't go back to the dressing room. So we had to wait until he got done talking, which was good. We started late. But Stevie, if you're looking, so many wonderful memories. And I'll tell you a story about Stevie also. I didn't see Stevie Wonder for years. It was in the 80s. And he was in Florida doing a book signing. And I was invited. He was with Abner Hewitt, who was the president of VJ Records, and then wind up working for Berry Gordy, and also took care of all of the artists that Berry had. And I walked in, it was a private affair, maybe 30, 40 people. And I said, Abner, my man. Stevie hadn't seen me or heard didn't hear my voice for years. Said, man, is that the Geator? Where's the Geator? He never forgot my voice. So amazing. So I said, yo, Steve. He said, Geator, where are you? And I went, and we hugged. So it's interesting that when someone in life makes a point and does something, you never forget that. He never forgot my voice, which is interesting. Question?
Ian Schultz wants to know, what are your best memories of the Latin Casino?
The Latin Casino. Well, if you're from Philadelphia.
Tell some of the younger people what about the Latin
Okay. The Latin Casino was a nightclub in Philadelphia which featured big stars. Tony Bennett, Johnny Mathis, Patty Page, Joni James. Then the other club was a club called Sciola's. This club was where you would have your prom. Okay, after the prom, they would have a show over there. And my manager, Nat Sigel, used to book the Latin Casino. So the clubs in Philadelphia, the big clubs were the Latin, Scioli's. And then there was the black clubs, which would have been black. I mean, you had the Blue Note, okay, in Ridge Avenue. You also had, I'm going back to Pep's, Cadillac Show Bar. So the big acts would play the big clubs. The black acts that were not big would play what was called the Sepia Circuit. There were clubs that strictly all black artists. And I used to love Pep's because I would sneak in and see Dinah Washington, Sarah Vaughan, Billy Eckstein, and up the street, you know, you had Lou Rawls, okay, at the Showboat. So Philly was exciting back then. And then there was a comedy club. The comedy club was the Celebrity Room. That's where I first met Don Rickles. Celebrity Room featured all basically comedians. Dick Shawn, Don Rickles, Alan King, all of those top, Henny Youngman, all those top comedians. Stewie Stone, he remembers all of those clubs like that. Yes. Got a question?
Yes, Jackie and Broomall.
Talk about who?
Jackie and Broomall.
Jackie and Broomall. Hi, Jackie, how are you?
Can you tell us some celebrities from back in the day who were just the nicest people, and some celebrities that weren't so nice?
Jackie, every celebrity that I have ever met were wonderful. I mean, you got to understand, they have the same aches and pains as you and I have. I mean, but when you get on stage, there ain't no aches and pains. You just do what you got to do. Performers make people happy, and some of them are a little difficult. I mean, I love Chuck Berry, but Chuck Berry was not the easiest guy to work with. We had him at Memories in Margate, and it's a great story about Chuck in the book. Little Richard, who I love, Richard was the easiest guy to work with. He'd say, "What do you want? What do you need? You want me to sing wop, bop, or do bop?" I say, "Do it." And they're just wonderful. So I can't say who's good, who's bad. They're all, in my opinion, good. Some had little problems, but that's show business. Don't you have problems? I have problems. Go ahead.
Well, it's funny because Art Connor.
Who? Art who?
Art Connor.
Right.
He said in your book you have a couple stories about the late great Little Richard from back in the day.
Back in the day.
What was your relationship with him?
There was a great respect that Richard had. As a matter of fact, all of the artists, because they knew that I was a true fan and I loved their music. And because of that honesty, we were friends throughout his entire life. The last show I did for Little Richard was for when they're honoring Sidney Kimmel. And we brought in Little Richard, and he wasn't in good shape. As a matter of fact, he had problems walking. But Richard was a special. Lloyd Price is another one. Lloyd Price and I go back. Lloyd Price represents the true sound of New Orleans. The same thing with Fats Domino, the Neville Brothers, Irma Thomas, Tommy Ridgely, Ernie Cato. These were the people who created that sound. The Chicago Cats, the Groups, the Spaniels, the Dells, the Flamingos on VJ at the very beginning. These were my friends because I bought their records. So when I played their records, even to today, I talk about who they are. I knew, and they loved the fact that I just wasn't putting the record on the turntable. and saying, well, here is I Only Have Eyes for You by the Flamingos. I would talk about how the guys got the contract with George Goldner, because the Flamingos go way back to 1948, 49. And there was a great record producer by the name of George Goldner who had Frankie Lyman, the Chantels. He had them all. And the Flamingos were at a lull around 1956, 57. And Goldner, they were up for a contract. They were working at that time with Decca. And the contract was over, and Goldner said, I have an idea. I love their harmony. I want to do an album called Flamingo Serenade. And I'm not going to release the 45. I'm going to release the album. And in the album, I want them to do When I Fall in Love, Where or When, Lovers Never Say Goodbye, I Only Have Eyes for You. And then I will pick one song from that album, promote that song, and it will sell the album. And they did that. And Zeke called me and said, I was at that time on the road with Danny and the Juniors. He said, you think that's a good idea, Geator? You know, because we did all of the other stuff, which was really blow harmony like the Moonglows. I said, Zeke, I think that's a marvelous idea, because with your harmony, what you're going to lend to these standards were written by Rodgers and Hart and Cole Porter and Jerome Kern, and they never forgot. It's the same thing with Frankie Valli. I've been fortunate because I have an ear. Same thing with Dionne Warwick and Ronnie Isley. If I would hear something, and you could see, these are my records. I just shuffle. And if I see a song, Frankie Valli, Phillips, Tell It to the Rain, I know who produced it. I put it on the turntable. I talk about Frankie. I talk about the session, because I'm just not a guy that plays the music. I know the music. I feel the music. And if you see me at Memories in Margate, I'm up on stage. I'm just not shuffling. And I attribute that to I started as a dancer. Music has always been a big part of my life. And without music, and I think you agree, with what we're going through today, music will get us by. I think that's the most important thing. What happened to Ben Vaughn, my man? We lost him. Yes. But Ben, I'll never lose you. By the way, I also want to say hello to Adam Weiner. Now, for you people who know Adam Weiner, he has a wonderful group called Low Cut Connie. This kid is a throwback to what I do, and is a throwback to what rock and roll was, if you ever see him. And Ben Vaughn, marvelous musician, and is a true fan of the music. He's got a great show on XPM between 5 and 6. I'm from 6 to 7. I have a question, which is very important for you guys. Can we get these people on when we perfect all of this? Is that going to, yeah?
Yeah, we won't do it this way.
See, this is modern technology, guys, so you have to bear with me, okay? Let's see what we got here. Any questions here?
Yeah, since you brought up, you shuffled the records, we have a repeat question that some people are still interested in. Over the years, we see you shuffling records without sleeves. Do they ever get a lot of scratches?
Okay.
and clicking?
The question is, over the years, you've seen me shuffling records without sleeves. Do they get scratchy? Yeah, but when I play them, I say they're scratchy, but they're catchy. There's a difference between vinyl. I don't like CDs. I really don't, because when I'm really moving with my 45s, my mind's going to the next selection. With the CD, it takes away from my rhythm, because I got to look at what track it's on and what track it's not on, and I lose the rhythm. So vinyl, I play vinyl. 90% of my show is vinyl.
Do the different stacks mean anything?
Do the different stacks?
Yeah, the different
No,
stacks.
no. In other words, it depends upon my mood and my feel. If I feel, if the weather's bad, I'm going to bring you down. If the weather's sunny and nice, I'm going to bring you up. Wintertime, I do For Lovers Only on the radio show. And I talk from the record. And I explain the story. See, that's another thing which is interesting. A song will tell a story. A song that has a lyric that you identify is a song that you identify because you remember where you were, who the lady was, who that person was that was important in your life. That's why music is so important. Music talks for the human experience. I want to say hello also to some of our sponsors that truly are so important, especially during this time that we're going through. People at Thomas Jefferson Hospital and University, Steve Klasko, Dr. A.J. DiMarino, the doctors, the nurses, the people who really take care of the community, and also Will's Eye Hospital. Without you wonderful people doing what you do, and I commend you and I thank you for all of what you do, because it's very important, especially now that people come together and help people. That's important.
Right.
Right.
How do you?
How, he's saying, how do I? I have no idea.
Well, I think you talked about it earlier about how your TV show came about.
Well, the TV show came about, as I said, because when Dick Clark was leaving to do the show, as I said before, Lou Klein, he did it on WFIL. So I had already done Aquarama, I already did Steel Pier. So it was easy for me to make the pilot. And,
Was it in black and white?
yeah, that's interesting, because when I did the show on WCAU, it was not in color. WCAU, because of Paley, who owned CBS, that was the last network, here's some trivia for you, to go colorized. So when our show first came on, it was in black and white. As a matter of fact, the only time that my show was colorized is when I went on WFIL. The Saturday night show was in color, but the syndicated show, that's an interesting question, was in black and white.
Was the show diverse, racial?
Well, it was a different show. When I did the Discophonic TV scene, it was me, podium, kids. When we did WFIL, it was almost like in a club environment. And we had Marvin Gaye. That's another thing which is important. I don't know if you realize this, but I was fortunate because of the friendship and the respect that the people in the industry had, that I was able to get Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder, the Supremes, because they knew that if I played something and all of the kids were listening, and if I liked it, it would be a hit. And it really worked like that, ladies and gentlemen. You got to believe, I just don't play music just to play music. I got to feel it. I mean, it's got to have a message for me to deliver to you people out there.
So when Dick Clark did Bandstand at the Berwyn roller rink on Friday nights,
Let me tell you about Dick Clark and Bandstand and how it began. I think you know how it began. Bob Horn had Bandstand first. 56, he loses the show. Dick Clark takes over. Bob Horn was running dances at the Carmen roller skating rink, Willow Grove, doing dances at the Starlight Ballroom. When he lost that, the owners of all of these ballrooms and places automatically went to Dick Clark. And Dick Clark took over everything that Bob was doing in a bigger way, in a national way. So, you know, I got to ask you a question, okay? Especially if you're from Philadelphia. I can't see you, but I think I know the answer. Do you think that when Dick Clark left Philadelphia and took the show to the West Coast, it was as good as it was in Philadelphia?
I can answer that. I could say no because.
Well, can you answer it? He's right. No. And no disrespect for the kids out on the West Coast, but they were not dancers. The kids in Philly, you did the 81, you did the twist, you did the Bristol Stomp, you did the South Street, you did the Wagner Walk. Every record had a different dance. When Dick Clark went to the coast, he would play the same one record, two records, and they'd be still doing the same dance like that. So that was the difference, you know.
Didn't they used to play different versions of songs on the East Coast and West Coast?
Well, no, he's saying with different versions of songs.
Or maybe by the same song, but by different artists?
Me?
No.
No.
Wasn't that something in the radio scene back then?
No. Back then, no. The radio scene was completely different back then. Radio was formatted. In other words, WIBG, WFIL, they were only allowed to play X amount of records with songs bubbling under. If the song bubbling under start to hit nationally, then it would get on the charts. My secret of my success is nobody told me what to play. I would not let them tell me what to play. If I heard a song that I liked and it hit me, I wanted to send it out to you. And that's exactly what I did back in the day, you see. But, you know, the industry has changed. There's so many talented young people out there, I'm sure, that don't have the opportunity to be heard or to get a recording contract. Back then, every kid on the corner was singing. If you had something, Frankie Lyman, George Golner, bring the kid in, the Cleftones, the Spaniels, let's get them on the record contract. Now, you had stations all around the country where you would go to and you would get the records played. It was always the black stations that broke the black artist because pop radio was playing pop radio. And here's another thing which really is very interesting. When the Beatles came into this country, and I think you know, if you listen to me all these years, I was never a fan of the Beatles because it was bubblegum. She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. I want to hold your hand. Mine was Twisted Matilda, Dear Lady Twist, Gary U.S. Bonds, Twist and Shout, Pony Time, all of that. So what happened is pop radio started to play all English. Herman's Hermits, Dave Clark 5. Everybody, you only have 40 records? Well, out of the 40 records they were playing, 32 were English or English groups. And that destroyed the industry for young artists. You know, the only two groups other than the black artists who were getting played on black radio, the only two that really made it, the Motown artists, because they were so big, Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons were able to get played, the Motown artists were able to get played, and the Beach sound, the Beach Boys, were able to get played. But from 1963 on to around 1966, all English, British. That, for me, was great because I was playing the real deal. I was not playing English. No disrespect, but that wasn't the soulful music that I wanted to portray. Yo.
So that leads me, you're talking about young artists, and this
Young
is something,
artists.
something that we, as East Coast people with New York, Jersey, and Philly,
Right.
we know best is street harmony.
Street corner harmony.
Yeah, street corner harmony. So who would you consider was the best street corner harmony?
You know, he
or
said,
otherwise known as doo-wop?
who do I suggest is the best? You like macaroni? There's all kinds of macaroni. You call it pasta. You got rigatoni, you got fusilli, you got ziti, you got bow ties. Every one of these singing groups, Dion and the Belmonts, the Marcells, the Vogues, the Tokens, the Spaniels, had a unique sound that was completely different that made them unique. Like I like rigatoni. I like fusilli. I also like a lot of other macaroni, okay? Pappardelle. Each one of these macaronis, to me, represents a certain taste. It's pasta, but it's macaroni. Every one of these doo-wop groups, I call them street corner, are the best at what they do. I love the Dells. There's a guy, Anthony, out there, and his wife, Franny. The Dells, to me, with that 5-part harmony, and the Flamingos and the Dells and the Spaniels. And going back, I tell you, I do a show on XPN. This coming week, I'm doing a show on the great unheard voices, Clyde McPhatter and the Drifters, Nolan Strong of the Diablos, D. Clark of Cool Gents, okay? And I play this music, and I talk about Smokey. I said, because these are my friends, Smokey, I said, Smokey, your sound, I mean, it came from somewhere else. He said, Geator, you know that. I said, well, tell me who you really admired. He said, I loved Nolan Strong and the Diablos. And he also said, I loved Clyde McPhatter. So these were the voices, the mentors for other great performers, you see. And I'll tell you another thing about a performer. When I was on the road, we would hit town to town. Paul Anka, Danny and the Juniors, on and on. Frankie Lyman would be doing the show. Buddy Holly and the Crickets. We did all these shows. And when a performer, you only went up on stage. Whose phone is that? I'm doing an interview. I can't talk to you right now. Jimmy D? Hold on. Jimmy D. Terrific disc jockey. But when we would go and do the show, the artists would only get up there, because you were 7, 8 artists on these road shows, only do their hits, 2 or 3 songs. Other groups and other artists would be in the wings watching Frankie Lyman doing this. And they'd say, wow, I like that move. And they would take a little bit of what one artist was doing it and apply it to their show. So you learned your craft by watching other artists doing their thing. So we were like salamanders. We all picked up little moves. I mean, my influence, as I said to you before, Sammy Davis, I mean, I admired the talent because Sammy could do anything. He didn't plan. It's like, I don't plan anything. When you see me, when I come out and do the one-nighters or I'm up on stage and I go by the audience. I know what I have to do to make you happy, to make you dance. And thank God. That's why I'm still here, I guess, you know. But what else we got over here?
I'm curious to know.
This is Pat Smith. Hello, Pat Smith. I know you. Karen Ross said this. According to the director Tarantino, there are 2 types of people. Elvis Presley people or the Beatles people. You might be a great movie guy, but I disagree with you. Elvis, yeah, great. But there were other performers just as good that did not get the play maybe that Elvis got or the Beatles. I love Elvis. And listen, the Beatles later on, great material. I mean, as they matured. But the early stuff to me was bubblegum. You got to understand, 62, 63, I was playing rhythm and blues and rock and roll. So, you know, Quentin, you're a good guy, but there are other artists also. Let's see. John Donahue. Hey, I go back with you, one of the great dancers. John, you look good. I'm okay. Okay, let's see. Somebody else said, what's this? Okay, I just started a war with the Beatles. And I'm looking at this, and most of you are agreeing with me. Well, it's simple, man. I mean, you know, look. You got another question? You got a question over there?
Yeah.
Eddie, I want you to wake up. I mean, I want you to be, I want you to be the art link letter.
I'm awake. I'm letting you do your thing. Beep, bop, 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 boop, boop.
Go ahead.
Let's talk about Tom Jones.
Tom Jones. Now, okay.
Because doesn't that fall around the Elvis? No.
Tom Jones was a black Englishman who adored black music and did it very, very well and emulated some of the black performers like Otis Redding and cats like that. A great performer. And you know who loves Tom Jones? Who? An actor by the name of Bruce Willis. As a matter of fact, Bruce had a birthday party and he hired Tom Jones. He loved Tom Jones. But, you know, every artist represents a sound. And that's what music is about, a sound, you see.
Anthony Robert wants to know,
Anthony Robert wants to know.
Martha and the Vandrells
Martha and the Vandrells.
ever hear you do your intro to
okay.
Heat Wave?
Oh, he's talking about, according to the big tick-tock or the Tower Pop. This is the Geator with the heater being on the record. A pleader sang, oh, wop, bop, bop, a do, bop, and I nail it all the time. In 62, they did that record. So that was perfect because it's like a 24 opening bar intro. Dun, 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 dun. So I developed that rap, which I just did, and I do it all the time. People go crazy, and they do it now. The Geator with the heater being on the record. A pleader sang a wop, bop, a doop, bop, pop. Martha's a dear friend of mine, and we were doing a show in Harlem. It was a block party, and my dear friend Seymour Stein was invited with it. It was right outside the Apollo Theater, and it was a block party, and Martha Reeves and the Vandellas were performing. So I went with Seymour, and when Martha saw me, Geator, get up on stage. I got up on stage and I started to dance, and she said, we're going to do Heat Wave. I said, okay. I'm going to do it with you. Okay. And I did it with Martha Reeves, and she nailed it. Nailed it. Martha Reeves. By the way, some of the great songs that you people may not realize with Motown, the B-sides. The B-sides were just as good as the A-side. And the problem that many times you did not hear the B-side because the record companies would only give the radio stations one song. An A and a B was the same song. It was called the demo. But with me, I would go around and I would pick and I would look at the other side. I'm curious. Frankie's got a B-side. I would play it. Marlena. Okay, the other side, Candy Girl. So I would play the B-sides. And it worked. You never heard it because radio never played it. The record companies only one did that one song to be played.
So here's what I want to do.
But
I want to challenge the viewers
you want to challenge the viewers
to do their own
Geator rap.
Geator rap and send it to us on the DM, and we'll play it.
He's challenging
Dave, will you be
you
able to
to do
mix
the
that
Geator
up?
rap. And we'll do it
Send
together.
it to us on DM on Facebook. So take your cell phone, record you doing the Geator
He's
rap.
talking, and can they hear
They can
you?
hear me, right? Okay.
Okay. Listen to this voice, the voice of the shadow. Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The shadow knows. That's Burt
That's
Lancaster.
right. Here at Geator Gold Radio, we want you to send in your own Geator rap.
Right?
Record it on your cell phone. Send it in on DM on Facebook, and we will put together a compilation and air it right here Sunday nights at 6 p.m. Direct message us on Facebook.
These are the unknown voices, the singing nuns.
Also, don't forget, our live stream coming from Memories in Margate, Fridays, 5 p.m. to midnight, and Saturday, 7 p.m. to 1 a.m. And don't forget to check us out live on Facebook at facebook.com/Geator or on Mixcloud.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was John Facenda. You remember John Facenda, one of the great newsmen in America today. Good evening there. This is John Facenda. And he would say, good night now. Have a good evening. You know, this is a marvelous way, I guess, for you and I to connect because I said it to you before. You may not realize this, but I really miss being and hanging with you guys. I mean, my life, even as a kid, has always been about people. And when I cannot connect with people, it's terrible. And I not only speak for me, but I speak for Frankie Avalon, and I speak for Dion Work, and I speak for Dion, and I speak for all of the wonderful performers out there who want to be working and are not working. We live, and listen, it's not about the money. It's about the satisfaction that you get, that I get, a performer gets, knowing as you get off the stage, you made people happy. I am at Memories in Margate. The summer began. I have a sign. I hear you knocking. You can't come in. But I get up on stage and I envision 1,000 people that will be there every summer from all walks of life, all ages, dancing and having fun. I try to keep that energy on stage because I know even though you're not there, you're looking and you're listening. So I want you to know that we are together. And it's not easy being on your feet 7 hours. Stacy said, Daddy is on his feet for 7 hours. I said, yeah, and we can go another 7 hours. I doubt it. But for my kids, Stacy and Desiree, I love you. Desiree is the greatest. Kathy and her kids, my grandkids, they are the best. That's what makes me smile. And little Joseph Downey, Joseph Michael Downey, my newest little grandson, came to see me. And I started to snap my fingers, and he looked up. It'll be 4 months in September, right? And he's got wonderful parents. And that's another thing. If you're going to have kids today in this world, make sure that you take care of them. You are teachers. We are all teachers. Keep them by you, because this world is a crazy world. The influences that young people are exposed today is not good. Back then in the neighborhood, if you stepped out of line, you got kicked in the ass. Not by your parent, but by your neighbor. So if you got kids in the world, man, make sure that you bring them up. And education is the most important thing. I was fortunate that I found music. I went to Southeast Catholic. I was a pretty good student. I mean, I would absorb, okay? I won a scholarship for liberal arts, okay? I didn't want it. And I never forget what I said. I don't want it. They said, what? This is a scholarship. I didn't want it because I found music. I was on the road. I had Danny and the Juniors. I wanted to be in show business. So I found something. But that was my education. Do you know Sammy Davis, at the age of 4 years old, was on the road with his father and the Will Maston Trio and never went to school? He was born in a suitcase. True story. And Sammy said to me, he learned from watching TV and looking at movies and being around people who were smart, who taught him. And that's another thing. Always be around people smarter than you, better than you, because you become as good as they are. Stay away from negative people. Go with the positive. And you learn that. Look, I'm 80 years old. I've lived a long time. One day I got up, I was 13, I was dancing. Now I get up, I'm 80. I said, what did I learn? I learned to survive and to be where I am. I learned about loyalty, friendship. I learned about honesty. And I also learned about who I am. You can't be anybody except who you are. I ain't always right, but I got to make mistakes for me to learn. Same thing with you. And I say this not for you and I, but to teach young people about that. My grandson is a teacher, and I remember one of the questions was, if I wasn't doing show business, right, what would I do? I would be a teacher, or I would be maybe a priest. I would want to do something. I'm not bright enough to be a doctor, but I would want to do something that bring something into people's lives, whether it's religion or teaching them an education. And that's what Lindsay does, and that's what Joey does. And this little baby is going to be a terrific little guy. Terrific little guy. Yeah.
All right, so we're at our hour.
But I have to apologize to Ben Vaughan. Also, I'm glad because we had Frankie Valli earlier. And right, and I said, Frank, he said, okay, how are we going to do this? I said, I'll let you know. So Ben, you were a test, but we'll perfect it. I have to apologize to Ben Vaughan.
Every week we keep growing and testing out new things.
Yeah.
Pretty soon we'll have the call line open so people can call in and ask questions. But for now, we have 6 o'clock every Sunday, the 1 hour open Q&A with the Geator.
Right.
On Fridays, we have live broadcasts from Memories of Margate from 5 p.m. to midnight. Saturday, 7 to 1. And then don't forget,
The
they're
T-shirts.
selling out. The T-shirts are selling out.
I need money to get across the bridge, the Benjamin Franklin Bridge.
Facebook.com/Geator.
Facebook.com/Geator.
The hoodies will be in soon.
Okay.
We're gonna have hoodies and the Geator Rap Challenge.
And the Geator rap song.
Tell them to record their song, the Geator Rap.
You heard what he said.
No,
You
they
re-
can't hear me now. You
oh,
have to
oh,
say.
you got to record the Geator rap. Get them to me however you're going to get them to me.
Through Facebook direct message.
Facebook direct message.
Yes.
Okay. You're going to do it. I can't tell you how to do it. Thank you. Thank you. Have a great week.